Hello, beautiful perception trainers people, and welcome back to another video. So if you watched the last video, I highly recommend that you go and do that if you haven't. And if you have watched the last video, you understand now the kind of basic foundational concept of the fact that when we are children, when we are small children who were just born, who are physically, mentally, emotionally incapable of providing for ourselves, we are dependent upon our caregivers to provide everything for us. So this is the main foundation for all of the crazy shit that humanity has gone through, essentially, since forever and ever, is this initial trauma of being completely dependent upon our caregivers for provision. And being emotional beings that can emotionally reject our children, emotionally not engage in meeting their needs, we are humans who are self-aware and have very complex needs that we as humans don't understand. So you had needs as a baby, as a child, that your parents didn't understand. Your parents have needs that they don't understand. We're living in a world where we as humans don't understand what we need to thrive. And we live in a world where when we are not getting our needs met, we have pain. When we are working against how reality functions, we have pain. So when we are not able to express ourselves properly, when we have a need that is not being met, when we are not allowed to learn and grow and we don't know how to learn and grow, we are in pain. We have pleasure when our needs are being met and we're growing. Because again, fundamentally, we're just life. Life wants to grow. Life has one characteristic, and that is learning, growing, changing, evolving, and expanding. So when we are being held back from that, we are dying, and therefore we'll have pain. It's that simple. So we're babies, we're born, we have no way of reasoning. We don't understand how reality works. We're simple. We don't know how to meet our own needs. We don't know how to care for ourselves. We are completely dependent upon our caregivers, not only to change our diaper, to feed us, to shelter us, to protect us, to love us, to warm us, to play with us, to help our brains develop, all these things. We're dependent on them for our perception of how reality works. We're dependent on them to teach us what is right and wrong, good and bad, because we don't understand pain and pleasure for ourselves. And now this is already an advanced concept because most of humanity doesn't understand this. Pain is not bad, pleasure is not good. There is a right and a wrong way to do things. There is good and bad. There is right and wrong. In the sense of that which is supportive of life is good. That which is working against life is bad, in the sense that that which is supportive of life is going to feel good. That's what feels good to us. That which is supportive of death is going to feel bad because we're living beings who want to live. So when we're growing up, we are dependent upon our caregivers to understand our needs, which we don't understand, and to meet our needs, which we don't understand or have the capacity to meet. And because we're emotional, because we're self-aware, when a human mother or a human father rejects their child, the child is going to perceive imminent death because the child is dependent upon the caregiver to see that the child is in pain and to fix that pain. Because again, when you're a baby and you're in pain, you don't have cognitive awareness that you can be hungry for a little while and not die right now. When you're hungry, that's pain. You cry. You don't stop crying until you are fed because the pain doesn't go away until you're fed. And in your baby nervous system, when you are hungry and you cry and you're not fed, the pain doesn't go away, your nervous system then kicks in and says, we're going to die. Okay, so that's kicking your nervous system into that yellow or red zone that we talked about in the last video. And I'll put the link again to the yellow, red zone nervous system stuff in this video. When we're grown, and then as we start to grow as children, when we start to express ourselves as our personality, when we start to express our growth, so learning how to pour water out of a cup and making a mess, hitting another child, so that we can learn what it feels like when we do that, so we can come out of the 1-year-old, 2-year-old narcissism that's normal and natural, to start to understand that we're here with other beings and we have to make messes. We have to bump up against our limits of reality, go through challenges in order to learn. So we need to interact with that pain of hitting another child because they have something that I want. And rather than being scolded, guilted, and shamed, if we were held in that and say, okay, did you notice how you feel when that happened? Did it feel good to hit little Johnny? No, it doesn't feel good? Okay. Why don't we try sharing? How does that feel? And then little child learns it feels better to share. So now I don't need to drill into my head it's wrong and bad to hit. I learned from reality. Pain showed me that hitting didn't feel good and sharing felt better. So now I'm naturally going to share forever because it feels better. So just like this fundamental concept that we can learn from reality, that we can learn from pain and pleasure. We don't need to scold and shame and guilt our children into doing the right thing. If we could just help them process the pain and the pleasure that they're experiencing when they're doing what they're doing, that's the first thing. But none of us got that. We got traumatized. You hit another child, you got yelled at, you got shamed, you got scolded, this is bad about you. So there was that pain, but then there was also the rejection pain. That rejection pain. When your parents rejected you, when your parents abandoned you, when your parents didn't meet your need, when they didn't let you grow, when they yelled at you for the messes that you made, when all of these things happened, the only thing you had control over as a child was your own behavior. The only thing I had control over as a child was my own behavior. So when my mother was abandoning me, when my mother was rejecting me for being who I was, when my mother was saying, this is a bad part of you, I was not an adult who was capable of saying, oh, she's just rejecting that part of me because she doesn't understand. Or, no, this is a need that I have that I'm going to have to get met, that if I don't get met, I'm not going to thrive. And so I'm just trying to get the need met. This is not something bad or wrong about me. I just don't know how to get my need met. All I knew was she's going to pull away now, so I need to change my behavior to convince her to love me so that she'll provide for me again. And then we get caught in that childlike view of the world, that provision comes from the outside. And provision is predicated upon being accepted. And then our nervous system says, okay, any behavior that gets me rejected, anything that I do that gets my parent to scold me, to reject me, to hate me, to blame me, to abandon me, that they say is wrong or bad, I have to just never do that again because that goes against my survival. Because I am dependent on their approval for them meeting my needs to survive. So that's wired into your nervous system. That's your pattern recognition that when I do this, I get rejected, my nervous system gets in, I'm going to die, so just do whatever it takes to get accepted, and that's how I live. And then we get stuck in that, because in that state of fear, that actual nervous system state of fear, we cannot learn, grow, change, evolve, or expand. We can't see, oh, this is not actually a bad thing about me. This is just something my mother doesn't understand. This is just something my father doesn't understand. This is just, they're not meeting my need because they're busy. They can't do it right now. They're overwhelmed. It's not actually bad that I make a mess. It's just mom is busy. She didn't have time to clean it up. We don't have that as children. So when we're stunted in our growth like that, when we're stunted in our ability to express, it is the medicine in the beginning to alter our behavior, to do whatever it takes so that mom and dad will approve of us and therefore provide for us. That's the medicine in the childhood. But in our adulthood, that becomes the poison, because disconnecting from our real selves, disconnecting from true pain and true pleasure and covering it up with guilt and shame, disconnecting from being able to make mistakes in reality and learn from them, is the thing that's stopping us from being able to survive. So the conditions of our childhood and the conditions of our adulthood are two different conditions. We needed approval in childhood to be provided for when we weren't capable of providing for ourselves, when we weren't capable of understanding reality for ourselves and getting our needs met for ourselves. In adulthood, we are capable of that now. This is the whole, it's not my fault, but it's my responsibility. We were all conditioned as children to behave how our parents wanted us to behave, and that equaled provision. But the degree to which our parents wanted us to behave in a way that's out of alignment with real reality is the degree to which we have pain and shame and drama and self-sabotage and scapegoats and coping mechanisms in our adulthood, is the degree to which we cannot survive properly in adulthood. We are continuing to try to do what our parents, our caregivers wanted us to do, and that got them to approve of us. And and then it's obfuscated further by the fact that everyone's doing this. Everyone's operating under conditioning. No one sees reality for how it actually is. We're all in pain. We're all just trying to find the next provider. So then again, we grow out of our childhood and we start to see teachers and authority figures and government and God and all these things as the provider. And if I just please them, they will love me and give me what I need. Our spouses, our main relationships become this. Society at large, social media, we start to just become addicted to getting approval, because in our childhood nervous system, approval equaled survival. That is true. But now as an adult, we want to be approved of by reality, not a person, not humanity. Humanity pretty much has it wrong. Okay, so now I want to tell you my story of how I discovered this. Because learning to learn from real reality, learning to learn from real pain and pleasure, learning to unwire that nervous system that says acceptance and love and approval from the outside is how I survive. And learning to pick apart consensus reality, pain and pleasure, so the pain of being rejected and that wiring your nervous system that you're going to die, and the pleasure of being accepted and that telling you that you're doing the right thing because you've been accepted and now you're going to get provided for and you're not going to die. That's consensus reality. True pain is when I do this in reality, it hurts because it's out of alignment with reality. When I do this in reality, it feels good because it's in alignment with reality. I need to be constantly learning, growing, changing, and evolving my perception of how reality works through continuing to discover myself more and continuing to discover reality more through breaking myself against reality, experiencing pain, trying things, failing. Why did I fail? What was it that I wanted that I couldn't achieve? How do I achieve it in reality that actually exists? Okay, it didn't go the way that I thought it was because reality is more complex. So I just need to learn more about reality, right? I want to fly. I jump off the cliff. It doesn't work. Okay, it's because there's way more complexity, aerodynamics, human physiology, all of these things that led to the airplane. So the desire to fly, falling off a cliff, pain, breaking myself against reality, learning from real reality through that pain to develop the airplane. So now I've evolved reality, and that whole process was evolution. So this is what real life looks like. We're getting our needs met for our true basic needs, which we will discover most of us never got them met, and we aren't getting them met in real society. We're discovering our real true selves, which are growing forever. And we're learning how to learn from reality for ourselves so we don't need a provider. We don't need a savior. We come out of codependency, childhood codependency. That's normal. We are codependent as children. I am requiring you to meet my needs because I can't meet them for myself. But in adulthood, it's not healthy anymore to be codependent, to need the love, acceptance, and approval of other people so that they will meet our needs. And even just this idea that now it's just love and acceptance equals good, equals life. So we can be doing something that the whole world approves of, which is painful to us because it's out of alignment with true life, and we don't see it because we think it's wired into our nervous system that acceptance equals love, acceptance equals survival. So I'm doing the right thing. Everyone's agreeing with me, it must be the right thing. And this is why we fight with each other over nutrition and we try to convince each other of everything, because we're still codependent children. Okay, so now let's talk about my thing. Okay. So this is a super vulnerable share. If you made it all the way through this, good for you. This is super vulnerable. So in my childhood, I was very sensitive. I was an empath. I was emotional. I was all of these things. And I think this is just very common. A lot of people are going to relate to the story. You were the emotional barometer for your household. I was the emotional barometer for my household. Everyone else was living in their consensus reality. My mom was doing what she was doing. My dad was doing what he was doing. That's what they thought were right, because that's what was taught to them by their parents, their conditioning. They're just living the way that they think is right. A child comes along who's not conditioned yet, who doesn't know the societal standards, what I'm supposed to do, how I'm supposed to react, what this is supposed to give me. I show up and I'm extremely emotional. I'm physically ill. I am now looking back, seeing, I'm reflecting back to my mother. What you're doing isn't working. How this household is functioning is against life. So I'm having an emotional reaction that I don't understand because I'm a small child. I'm sad. I'm cranky. I'm angry. I explode with sadness and overwhelming emotion all the time. My mom has a narcissistic personality. So all she sees is, you are making me look bad. This is bad, wrong, you've got to stop doing this. You are bursting the bubble. You are the reason our household is unhappy. If you could just be happy, if you could just be nice, Alyssa. So this was like a thing that was taught to me very, very early on. I would have an emotional reaction. I would cry because I don't want to go to school. I would cry because I don't want to eat what we're eating for dinner. I'm crying. I'm just very upset. I'm physically in pain and I'm crying out for her to help me and she's not doing it. And I'm being told over and over again that it's your emotional outburst. It's your emotional being. It's the way that you are that's making our household terrible. We would all be happy if it weren't for you and your crazy emotions. You need to stop having these emotions. You need to stop this. Because again, in her worldview, me being in pain, me being emotional, me being how I was, either meant there's something wrong with me, the child, which is better for her, or there's something wrong with her as a mother. She's doing something wrong. She started to feel that guilt, that my kid isn't happy, and she had to project it onto me to absolve herself of the guilt that she was doing something wrong, because she didn't know how to problem solve. She didn't know how to make it better. She didn't understand what was going on with me. All she saw was, my child is freaking out. I'm doing everything I'm supposed to be doing. It's not working. It must be the kid is messed up. So that was my conditioning from the very beginning. My emotions are something that's wrong with me. So now all through growing up, and now on top of this, because my mother has the perception that she has, the idea that I was there to serve some sort of something for her was also just an assumed thing. There was an assumed underlying thing that as her child, I was there to provide something for her. I was there to provide love for her that she had never gotten. I was supposed to validate her in ways she had never been validated. There was an expectation of me making her life better that me being in pain definitely didn't do, and me rejecting essentially her way of being definitely didn't do. So two things of conditioning being imprinted into me as a helpless child from the very beginning, that your pain is your fault and it's causing me pain, and you're supposed to be making me feel better and you're actually making me feel worse. So you're failing as a being, and I'm going to reject you. I'm going to scapegoat my problems onto you. I'm going to blame you. I'm going to pull away from you when you're like this. I'm going to just walk away. I'm going to roll my eyes. I'm going to abandon you. That's what was happening. So the true root was, I'm having emotions that are saying my household is out of alignment, that I am not getting my needs met. I am a small child who's not getting what I need. This is out of whack. And I'm proclaiming that pain in my physical body and in my emotional body. My emotions are loud. My physical pain is loud. I'm saying problem, problem, problem. My mom is saying, okay, I don't know what to do. I'm completely overwhelmed. I think I'm doing everything right. She's acting this way and it's not right. And she's not fulfilling the need that I expected her to fulfill. So just blame the child, reject the child, run away. And what does that do? That activates my nervous system that I'm going to die. Every time she pulls away from me, when I express a need, and then I don't get my need met, I go into red nervous system. Okay? So this kept happening as my childhood was going, and then as I started to become a small child and into my early like preteens, my pattern recognition starts to come online. So I start to notice that the times and places where I get the most rejected, the most abandoned, the most scolded, the most shamed, the most guilt is in these times where I express my big emotions, when I cry. So I would come home from school, I would tell mom that I hate school. I hate being at school. It's so painful. The kids are so mean to each other. They're so mean to me. I don't know how to make everyone like each other. I don't know what to do to make them like me. This is just such a hard thing and I hate it and I don't want to do it. And instead of my mom saying, oh honey, it's okay, it's not your fault, kids are mean, that is true, validating my pain in any way, she was like, this is your fault. Because again, I wasn't making her look good by being popular and validating and reflecting back to her who she was. Because when she was in school, she was a popular jock. And that was what was accepted. And that's what, in her mind, what would have made her look good as a mother. So I'm not doing that. I'm not a popular jock. I'm a sensitive little artsy philosopher. And so she's already disappointed in me. And now, because I'm not reflecting back to her what was right. And now I'm emotionally crazy and that is seemingly making the kids reject me. So I'm even less popular. And so she's like, you need to just stop being this way. This is your fault. Again, you're causing me pain, that you come home every day from school crying. This is not what I want to be doing with my time. Your physical illness is not what I want to be doing with my time. I'm overwhelmed. I'm tired. I want my own space. I want my own time. You're taking up too much time. You're not making me feel good about myself. In fact, you're making me feel bad about myself. So now, over and over and over again, it's just imprinted into my system that being emotional and having sickness equals death because it gets me rejected. But because those things were coming up because of actual true needs that were not being met inside of me, that were not being given to me, there was no way that I could stop myself from being emotional. So I would try really, really hard to bottle up my emotions and not be needy and I would explode every day. And then she would reject me even more. And then that would cause me to get my needs met even less, which would make me even more emotional, which would cause me to express my emotions, which would get her to reject me and blame me again. So then it became this vicious cycle of me trying to not be emotional made me even more emotional because it was my true needs. Now that I am an adult, I can see this. My true needs were to be validated, to be seen, to be loved, to be told that I didn't have to go to school and that maybe that wasn't the right environment for me and that maybe I just needed something different. And there were lots of things about my life that were out of alignment with who I am as a person that now as an adult I've found out by loving myself and honoring myself, and I'll talk about that later. So in this beginning, it's my pain was causing the emotion. The pain was coming from being out of alignment with truth. I had no way of meeting my own needs. I had no way of figuring out for myself what I needed to do. I couldn't change my own circumstance. I couldn't just take myself out of school. I couldn't change my own diet. I couldn't do any of these things. I was just in pain and completely victim to the life my mom was making me live, just like all children are. So that's why I say I have no problem admitting that I was a victim as a child. You were a victim as a child. You could not change your environment. You could not change what your parents thought was right and wrong, good and bad. And when you had an emotional reaction to it, and they didn't listen to you, you were hooped. And then it was, like I say, wiring into your system that you're going to die now. because now not only are they not meeting your needs, they're rejecting you inside of your needs. So this whole cycle was starting to happen. So now I'm trying really hard as a teenager, a preteen, and into my teenagerhood to learn to make my emotions go away, which was failing every single time because, again, my needs for attention and love and being seen and having someone spend time with me and validate me and stimulate me because I was a smart child and all these things, the less emotional I was, the more my mom checked out. So therefore, the less I got my needs met, therefore, the more my emotions would eventually build and they would explode, and then she would pull away even more. So then I would try even harder not to have emotions, which would make her reject me and ignore me and not get my needs met even more, which would cause the emotion. So you see how this cycle was happening? So I'm having this thing where I'm trying so hard to not have emotions, and the harder I try, the less my needs get met. So the more my emotions come out, and then the more I'm rejected, the more I'm scapegoated, the more I'm told that all the pain in the household is my fault and everyone would be happy if it weren't for me, and I'm blamed and I'm shamed, and my body is getting sicker and weaker, and the more I ask for help on that, the more I'm ignored, until eventually I get to 14 years old. And the other thing too is now I'm also trying to fix other people's pain, because it's starting to also be in my pattern recognition that when I counsel my mom, that when I do something helpful for her, when I help other kids, when I'm there for them, and I am that listening voice or that listening presence. I am there validating their pain and saying, okay, how can I help you? How can I make this better for you? How can I try and make your pain go away? How can I allow you to scapegoat your pain onto me and blame it onto me and absolve yourself of it? So I started to become a codependent doormat as early as forever in my childhood. I let my friends be so mean to me because I just felt like I was worth nothing and I could see that they were in pain. And so they would bully me and shame me and pick on me and make me the butt of the joke and reject me and all these things, and I would just let them do it because A, I didn't feel like I was worth anything better because that's how my mom treated me. Whenever she needed to blow off steam, whenever something bad was going on in her life that she didn't know how to deal with in herself, she could blame it on me and I would take it. And she could say, it's you. If you were just different, everything would be better. And I would say, well, yes, I'm a child. Of course, you're right. And so then I started to learn to do that with my friends. And it started to be the only way I could get love, the only way I could get attention, the only way I could sort of get my need met was to be a counselor and a good listener and a non-emotional, non-feeling person in myself so that I could be a perfect counseling provider for someone else. So I'm learning that. My needs are getting met less and less and less as I'm trying to shut down my emotions, and then my emotions are getting even stronger and stronger and stronger. The longer my needs aren't being met, the more I'm being forced to go to school, the more my diet isn't working for my body, the more stress I'm under. So I'm sent to the guidance counselor in grade 1 because I'm so stressed, and that was having a huge effect on my physiology and my brain. I'm trying to be perfect. I'm trying to be the perfect student. I'm doing all these extracurricular activities I don't want to be doing. I'm literally socially anxious all the time, and yet trying to force myself to play baseball and do all these things and just be a normal kid the way my mom wants me to be, and I'm failing every day. And every time I tell her I don't want to go and play, I don't want to go outside, I don't want to do the thing, that's irritating for her. So I'm getting rejected, so I'm doing it anyways, and it's shell shocking me. And so I'm not getting my needs met, then I'm having an emotional outburst, and then I'm getting blamed and shamed when I get home. So this is all happening. So by the time I'm 14, I get to a place where I am so desperately feeling like I'm going to die all the time. Because physically, my body was degrading. I know now. I had Crohn's, colitis, something really bad in my colon was going on. My stress levels were so high, which causes you to not be able to absorb nutrients, which causes your hormones to go out of whack, which being that stressed. So the reason I was that stressed is because I knew fundamentally that she was rejecting who I really was. And that was causing survival stress. My nervous system was being activated that I was going to die every single time I had an emotion, which was all the time. And every time she rejected me, every time she blamed me, every time she scapegoated me, that my nervous system thought I was dying. Because that's how that nervous system works. And when I couldn't alter my behavior to make her love me, that also told me, you're dying. You're going to die. She's going to reject you. She's not going to meet your needs. And now you're going to die. So Sure, she's feeding me food, but she's feeding me food that's poisoning me because my body was sick and she kept feeding me this diet that was really terrible. And I would have a reaction and then get rejected for needing love and attention while I was sick. So it's this whole spiral of I'm just constantly feeling like I'm going to die. I'm not aware of that, but my nervous system is in that state. So then that's proliferating all of my health issues, which then again make her reject me even more. So it's this crazy cycle of I'm just feeling like no matter what I do, I get rejected. No matter how hard I try to be a perfect counselor, it never works. I can't make anyone's pain go away. No matter how hard I try to be who my mom wants me to be, I'm never it. I always fail. I just always fail. I always get emotional. I always get sick. Something always happens, which triggers her to feel bad, to scapegoat me, shame me, reject me. So I'm not getting my needs met. And it's just, so by the time I was 14, I literally ended up on the couch with a lung infection that I had for like 6 months. I literally missed so many days of school, they almost didn't let me graduate grade 8. I had to kind of bribe my teachers. I don't even know what happened. I literally bribed my teachers. And my math teacher literally said to me, like, you're lucky you're smart and that you have good grades because you missed so many days of school. We shouldn't let you go on. So I was smart. I did all my work. I passed all my courses. But like I said, I was sick so much. They just abandoned me on the couch. I had a cyst on my ovary for like a month before she would take me to the doctor because at this point they just felt like I was a boy who cried wolf. I was sick all the time. They just abandoned me. And so I think what was happening for me in this was I was subconsciously resigning myself to death because I couldn't be who my mom wanted me to be. Therefore, I was never going to get my needs met because I didn't know that I could meet my own needs. I didn't know how to meet my own needs. And in my environment, trying to meet my own needs, which I would later discover, also got her to reject me, so that was really bad. So I was in a place where it was like, I'm never going to get out of this. I was completely depressed. My anxiety had turned into depression. I was just giving up. Like, life isn't, I'm not going to. I literally think I just sat there and stared out the window for 6 months because I was just like, this is it. I'm dead. I'm never going to be who she wants me to be. Therefore, my nervous system is always going to be being triggered that I'm going to die because the only way to survive as a child and to feel safe as a child so that you can then learn, grow, change, evolve, and expand, be a part of life is to feel like your parents love you and they're going to provide for you. So you can go about the business of being a child and learning, growing, changing, evolving, and expanding and not worrying about getting your needs met because your needs are being met. So I didn't have that. I'm in a constant state of stress. I'm in a constant state of being myself gets me rejected and therefore is going to make me die. But not being myself, not expressing my needs, not expressing my emotions also feels like death. So I just felt like I was going to die. And then what happens is I hit puberty, I get cysts on my ovaries, and I gain like 40 pounds overnight. Like I was always a really tiny kid, and then I just ballooned. So, and again, looking back, now I understand what happened. Hitting puberty in that state of stress, with that much cortisol running through my body, with that much nutritional deficiency, because of my digestion not working for my entire life because of the state of stress I was in. With how whacked out my body was by the time I hit puberty. What happened was I developed cysts on my ovaries, but I didn't have polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is the hormonal imbalance, because I didn't have any of my sex hormones. This is really what happened here. I went through puberty just enough at 14 that then kicked over into what I now believe was Cushing's disease, where my cortisol was so high, it was competitively inhibiting all the rest of my hormones. So I had my cycle for a year, and then it stopped when I was 15. We took me to the doctor. Why isn't she getting her period? We don't know what's going on. I had no hormones. I had no sex hormones. I had the hormones of a menopausal woman and the cortisol that was off the charts. But of course, I'm a 15-year-old, so they don't say, oh, your cortisol is competitively inhibiting your sexual hormones. Why are you so stressed? It was just weird. Your hormones aren't working. Maybe it's a pituitary gland thing. Maybe it's so I got a CAT scan, I got a million ultrasounds, and they were all just like, everything seems physically fine. We don't really know what's going on, so shoot. But what happened here was all of a sudden the weight gain happened. My mom comes online. She flips out. She takes me to the doctor for the stretch. So I got these big purple stretch marks, which is what happens when you have Cushing's disease. These big purple stretch marks. My face swelled. I got acne. I got a belly, just big boobs. Like all of this was happening. And she was like, oh, this is not okay. This is not good. We can't handle this. We can't have this. You can't be fat. That's not okay. So she starts taking me to the doctor to get creams for the stretch marks and do all this stuff. And literally the doctor had to like calm her down. Like, okay, mom, it's okay. It's just stretch marks. We can do something about this. It's all right, because she was panicking so much. And then all of a sudden, she's paying attention to my diet. She's putting me on a special diet. She's working out with me after school to help me lose weight. And all of a sudden, I start losing weight. And she starts approving of me. So this place that I had gotten to at 14, where I realized I was never going to be able to shut off my emotions. I was never going to be able to be validating for her. So again, I didn't consciously realize this. It was my nervous system knew this. I was never going to get provided for. I thought I was dead. Because she was never going to approve of me. And that approval meant survival. And I could not change myself to be what she wanted me to be. And therefore I just felt like I was going to die. That was it. That was the end. I was never going to be able to get that approval, and therefore I was going to die. I was never going to get my needs met, and therefore I was going to die. And then all of a sudden, I learned that when I lose weight, mom spends time with me. Mom approves of me. Other people start to approve of me. Other people start to take me seriously. All of a sudden, with my mom's approval, I'm starting to get my needs met a little bit for love, attention, someone spending time with me, someone listening to me, someone hearing that my body was in pain and they're trying to help me make it better. So all of these actual needs that I had start to sort of get met through this weight loss avenue. Then I start to feel more confident and better about myself. So when I go to school, I'm not so much of a pushover. I'm not so much of a scapegoat for my friends, and people start treating me better. And now it's completely wired into my nervous system that I can get what I need through losing weight. When I lose weight, people pay attention to me. First things first, my mom pays attention to me. She stops treating me like I'm the problem of the household. And she starts saying, I'm going to help you with a thing that's happening with you. We started to diet together and exercise together. And that meant she was spending time with me, which was something that I had wanted my entire life, was just quality time together, that she had always denied me. And all of a sudden it's happening. So I start to feel better. But of course now it's linked into my nervous system. That the thing that's making me feel better is losing weight, because that was what changed. When I started to lose weight, all of a sudden mom's spending time with me. I'm getting my needs met. She's listening to me. I start to feel better, which then changes my behavior in the outside world, which then gets me even more of my needs met in the outside world. Because what I really wanted was respect, someone to pay attention to me, someone to see me as an actual person, not something just what I do for you. And that started to happen. And then when I would gain weight, I would feel ashamed of myself. I would go into that fear mode. Oh my God, my needs aren't going to get met. So now I need to just be the scapegoat, be the subservient person who's there for everyone else, because that's my only other way of getting my need met. If I'm not getting approval from losing weight, I'm not getting approval. So then the only way I know how to get approval is to be a doormat for my mom and for my friends. So now it's completely correlated in my head that losing weight equals being my true self, being my higher self, getting my needs met. Everything is great when I lose weight. And then again, too, because when I lose weight, I'm getting my needs met, I'm way less emotional. I'm way less emotionally reactive because I'm getting quality time. Someone is paying attention to me. People are respecting me. Outside world is respecting me. So I'm getting my needs met. So I'm way less emotional. And so now this gets tied in, that I can't be who, and then so of course then when I gain weight, that stops happening. My emotions start coming back up again because I'm not getting my real needs met for time and approval, because I start to isolate myself and pull away and say, okay, well, I'm fat now, so people can't like me. They're not going to like me. They're not going to give me what I need. I don't want to be rejected, so I'm just going to hide until I lose weight. So now, again, you see, and then that would make my emotions even worse, and then my mom would start to hate me again, and then all this stuff would happen, and then I'd lose weight. She'd start to pay attention to me again. We'd have a great time in our relationship. I'm getting my needs met. I feel more confident. Other people outside start to react to that. And so now it's completely tied into my entire being. That survival, getting my needs met, is predicated on being thin. But my hormones are so fucked up. So this dieting, this is where we started to bond. And then I started to take it into my own hands. I started to go even farther with the dieting and farther into raw foodism, and because I really wanted to heal my body. I really wanted to get my period back. I wanted to stop my stomach aches from happening. I was in so much physical pain, and changing my diet and me taking control of that meant that I was in control of some of this pain that I had been in for my entire life. So of course, number one, it gets me approval and love and acceptance to be dieting and exercising and all these things, so I'm going to keep doing it. And number two, it's also true pleasure in that it started to kind of heal me. So now I'm starting to take this into my own hands, and I started to supersede my mom. I was going farther than her. I was starting to heal in ways that she hadn't been able to heal. I was no longer a reflection of we're doing this together, and also to the taking it into my own hands meant that she then couldn't make herself feel better about herself by the fact that she's mentoring me. Because that was the other thing too, is that she had control over it before. When she was the one determining what diet we were on and what exercise we were doing, and she was in control, that was how she was getting her need for, look, I'm a good person, that I'm in control of this, she's following me, she's finally validating that I'm doing the right thing and this is all about me or whatever. So then when I started to take it on my own, that took away the validation from her, and now all of a sudden she starts sabotaging me. She doesn't want me to keep doing this. She wants me to fail. She says, okay, well, I'm just not going to cook for you anymore. So now as a 14-year-old, so literally this happened. As a 12-year-old, I got my babysitting license as soon as I possibly could and worked every Friday and every Saturday from 12 to 16 until I could get a real job. So I was never a child. Let's just put it that way. I did not get a childhood. I was constantly in pain until I could start providing, and then they found my piggy bank when I was like 13 or 14, and it had like thousands of dollars in it because I had just saved all my money from babysitting, and they got a bank account for me. And then so she starts telling me at 15 and 16, when I start to transcend her in the dieting thing and transcend her in the exercise thing, and it's starting to become like a complete obsession for me, and it's not working anymore to get her love and approval. Because as I'm going farther than her, now she's being triggered in that I'm not validating her, I'm not making her feel good about herself anymore. So now she's starting to sabotage me. So now this thing that used to be the thing that got me my needs met isn't doing it anymore. But it's the only thing I know. So that is when I started to develop anorexia. Because it was just like, literally, I'm in so much physical pain. I have to keep going. I have to keep trying to get my own needs met. And figure this out for myself, because what mom gave me was a good start, but it didn't heal me. So now I have to keep going. So I'm starting to become an adult who's autonomous and independent, and my mom does not want that at all, because she wanted me to rely on her. She needed me to rely on her, to be her little minion, to make herself feel good about herself. So now she's sabotaging me. Now we're back in this scapegoating of everything that's wrong in our household is you again. So we went through this little brief period of time, and my sister even talks about it, that like she was 12 or 13 at the time, and she said like she had always been lost in her fantasy because our household was so awful. And there was that little period of time where it was the best it ever was. where when mom and I were dieting together and mom was in control and she felt like she was mentoring me and she felt like she was doing the right thing and I was validating her, that was the first time in our entire life, in our entire household, where it was good. And then when I started to go past it, it all fell apart again and got even worse. So then it's already now, by the time I'm 15, 16, 17, 18, completely wired into my nervous system that losing weight is the only way to get approval. Losing weight is the only way that anyone's going to pay attention to me, anyone's going to respect me, I'm going to get my need met for expression and attention met. But the more I'm doing it on my own, the more my mom is sabotaging me, the more she's spiking my food. I'm not going to cook for you anymore, so I get a job to pay for my own food. And then she, just everything she could possibly do to make it hard for me. I was literally going to school full time, had 100 million extracurricular activities, working a job, and she stopped making me lunch, she stopped making me breakfast, she stopped making me dinner because she said that my rules were too much for her. She was overwhelmed. She's a stay-at-home mom who had nothing else to do. So it was just manipulation. And I just kept doing it. I just kept providing for myself. I just kept saying, well, fine, I have to keep doing this. I can't go back to eating the way she wants me to eat because I'm feeling better this way, all this stuff. So now we can see why my correlation with losing weight and being approved of and getting my needs met was so there. Because at 14, I was like, I'm not going to be able to fix this. I'm never going to get my needs met. And then the weight loss thing happened to save my life. Losing weight saved my life. It got my needs met just enough. She paid attention to me. It got me out of my slump just enough that it was the only medicine I had. So then from that moment forward, working to try to accept myself at whatever weight that I was at, because remember, my hormones were still totally fucked up and I had no idea what was going on. So I was like a big puffball most of the time. I had that little period of time where I was anorexic, where I lost weight. And then when I regained the weight, I gained 50 pounds in 3 months. And then I was just right back to where I was at 14 because my hormones were still totally out of whack. And it didn't matter then how much I dieted. I literally tried to relapse so many times and it didn't work. I never lost the weight again. So then in 2012, I had that revelation in Thailand. I'm going to have to love myself for who I really am. And then this letting go of the making it about the dieting stuff and seeing that the weight loss was a coping mechanism for a need that I wasn't getting met and taking all of that away from myself. So back then I solidified, I'm just going to eat what feels good. I'm going to do, and again, that was super complicated because my body was really messed up and nothing felt good. Healthy foods didn't feel good because I was so stressed. My body could not digest them. So I really did believe that certain foods made me sick, when really it was just that I was so stressed that I couldn't digest anything. So it was very confusing and very difficult to weave my way out of that because I really was sick. And it wasn't necessarily the food that was hurting me, but everything that, right, it was just so much stress and I was just so confused and didn't know how to survive and all these things. So this reparenting of myself that I've been doing since 2012 has been leading me to see that, again, the anorexia, that was how I was coping. That's how I got my first taste of actual attention that I had needed. So, and then, like I say, I had the eating disorder and it was my tool. The weight loss was always what I went to when I felt like shit. When I felt like I couldn't get my needs met, when I was being ignored, when I wasn't getting what I wanted, when I felt like pain, my answer was always just lose weight. Nitpick your diet, do whatever, because that was the one thing that ever worked. That was the one thing that ever worked. And then truly, after that, it never worked again. I did it over and over and over again for years and years and years. I never lost weight, but even if I did, it didn't work again because I wasn't living in my mom's household anymore. And then I was completely convinced that I could never be in my career, that I could never do what I actually wanted to do with my life until I was thin. Because, again, respect, people paying attention to me, people looking at me, people seeing that I had something to say, never happened until I lost weight. So it was completely correlated in my mind that if I want to be who I am, which this is what I wanted to do my whole life, I can't do it until I'm thin. So I had to start doing it back then, and I did. I just started blogging. I just started to say, okay, I'm taking away this diet thing from myself. I'm going to learn to eat in a way that serves me. And that was a really, really long journey and really, really hard because my body was really, 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 really sick and really messed up because of so much stress and all these things. So it's taken me a really long time to unravel this whole thing. But taking the dieting away from myself, and I get it. You can look at me and you say, yeah, but you've been losing weight steadily over since 2012 to now, so of course you feel better about yourself. Okay, yes, I can see that. But you have to understand the work I've been doing in my real life has been approving of myself, giving myself the love, validation, and attention that I needed in my childhood that I didn't get. I have been changing my own life. I took myself out of the 9-to-5, the Western world, the never being in nature, the not having sunshine, the not having friends, the not having community. I have changed so much about my life that I'm now getting my actual needs met, that I'm not in a state of stress anymore. So then all of the swelling and the digestive issues and all these things that came with that have reduced. So of course my body is doing better. But we still have to understand that, so like literally, it's a miracle that I am where I am right now. Physically, I don't have any nutritional deficiencies. I have done a bone scan and I have slight thinning in one wrist. And if we think about this, I went into menopause at 15. So I didn't get those at least 20 years you're supposed to get, 20 to 30 years of estrogen being produced, which then feeds calcium into your bones. I didn't get that. I went into menopause at 15. So my bones should essentially be osteoporotic at this point. I should have so much nutritional deficiency because of how stressed I was and how bad that is for your digestion, that I should have, I should be very sick right now. This is the bottom line. And I'm not. I'm very thin, yes, because the swelling has gone down and everything that I've done in my lifestyle has been supportive of the pain I was in and the moving away from the Western world and the working online and everything that I've done in my relationships, in not having a relationship with my mom anymore and all of these things has been healing me. Because I've been reparenting myself. And it's been the scariest thing I've ever done because every single time I've had to meet my own need, it's been, I needed a break when I was trained that the whole point of me was to serve my mom, was to make life better for other people. So I truly, deeply inside myself believe that taking a break was selfish. That when I took a break, there were people starving in Africa because of me. That was my mindset. And I couldn't see anything outside of that. So I'm stressed out because I'm working all the time, and that's debilitating. But to do what I actually need to do, to rest, was conditioned into me as being the worst thing ever, the reason I'm being rejected. The whole point of my life is being ruined by that. So now I'm stressed no matter what I do. It feels like death to do either. And I had to start to learn from real pain and real pleasure, not consensus reality and consensus pain and pleasure, what was real. So I had to start to validate myself. Okay, you're in pain for a reason, it's not your fault. You're in pain for a reason, it's not your fault. And that was the first revelation. This isn't my fault. I was conditioned to be this way. I was conditioned to believe that weight loss equals the survival. That's not my fault. But the fact that that's in there so strong means that I'm going to have to do a lot of work to really see what's behind that. And then learning to get my own needs met in reality. So really learning that I could take a break, get rejected, people tell me I'm lazy, I'm spoiled, I'm not helping them, I'm making them feel bad about themselves, and then I can still eat, I can still make money, I can still provide for myself. That was starting to tell my nervous system, okay, we're not a child anymore. The more I was able to embrace my real true self and all the fear that that brought up, it always felt like I was going to die when I did that. Because of course it's wired into my nervous system. When I did this as a child, my mom pulling away equals I'm not going to get provided for, equals I'm going to die. So now the more I'm taking away my coping mechanisms, because like I said, I haven't starved myself since 2012. We made it a rule This was a minimum of calories I was allowed to eat every single day, and I'm not allowed to go below that. And my husband and my sister, they still see everything that I'm doing. I have healthcare practitioners that work with me, so they know what I'm doing. I'm not out here on my own. I've never gone back to that. And yet I've been losing weight steadily because I've been healing. The diet hasn't changed. The lifestyle has changed. The doing what I needed to do for my real self, the having the tough conversations, starting to have actual boundaries in my life, even seeing where I was completely killing myself with my work and all of these things to try to get approval, because being a counselor was the thing that was good about me. You see, it was so much. And this is why I say your pain is not your fault. I've discovered this for myself. I was in pain as a child because everything was out of alignment. Living in Canada in the cold where there's no sun and no real food, and I can't be outside, and I don't get any love or attention, and I'm very intelligent and I'm not being stimulated. I'm not being given what I need. I'm a super spiritual, mystical person who wants to talk about the meaning of life all the time, and all my mom wants to do is watch TV and read John Grisham novels. I wasn't getting my needs met. I was in emotional pain as a reaction to. I was anxious as a reaction to. I was depressed as a reaction to the out of alignment stuff that was going on in my life. So now I'm an adult. I may never be able to have children. I may always look weird in my body because I didn't go through proper growth. I didn't get those teen and 20 years where you're supposed to be growing. I didn't get that because I was so stressed. My body was in complete shutdown. I have had to reparent myself, and in that I have faced so much rejection. I have lost so many relationships. I've had to have so many hard conversations. I had to leave jobs. I had to really learn to provide for myself. And it was hard and it was scary, but it can be done. So now I'm in a place where I can forgive my mom. And I understand that none of this was her fault either. She was programmed. She was conditioned. She was already in that state before I was born. She didn't do any of that to me on purpose. But I can be in that state of forgiveness now in a safe way because I've changed my life enough that I'm not living how she wanted me to live. I'm not trying to live how she wanted me to live anymore. And I can see that when I want to overwork, or when there's even that part of me that's like, are you thin? I can say, okay, what do you need? What are you not getting? This isn't about being thin. This isn't about doing more work. This isn't about pleasing somebody else. What do you need? What are you not getting? What is going on with you? That is the reparenting. That's all reparenting is. Validating yourself that you're in pain. What do you need? How can I meet that need for you? That's what reparenting is. It is literally that simple. But it's so complicated because we have been trained that what we need and what we want is wrong and bad. That to be emotional is bad instead of what are your emotions telling us? You need attention. Well, that's bad because mom didn't want to give it to you. No, it's not bad. That's what humans need. You see? So now I can see what I need. Rest. Time to think about the larger complexities of life. Time to verbally process what I'm going through. To have someone just listen to me and respect me. These were needs that I now know how to meet in my adult life, but I first had to admit that I had them. And that was super hard because I was trained my whole life to believe that makes you bad. That makes you selfish. You're supposed to be quiet or serving someone. And if you're not doing that, you better be validating me in what you're doing. So you see, it was this whole big thing. But this is why there's nothing wrong with you. All your scapegoats, all your pain, it's not your fault. Everything you're doing to try to help yourself, or that you think is bad about you, is something you're doing to try to help yourself. I hope you can start to recognize in your story why you're self-sabotaging, why you're coping, why you're scapegoating. Where were your needs not being met, and where were you being told that your needs were wrong and bad? And that getting wired into your nervous system because your caregivers rejected you. Okay, so we're going to keep talking about this. This is all this is about. But I hope that just hearing my story will help spark something in you. You're not bad. Your scapegoats are not what's wrong with you. Your emotions are not what's wrong with you. Everything that you were blamed for being is not what's wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just misunderstood. And now as an adult, you need to understand yourself and learn to get your own needs met. And that's what we're doing in the mystery school. That's everything. Okay? So I'll see you in the next video.